I think we'll make a start. There's a few people still coming in. They're on Taupo time. Yeah, a warm welcome for everyone coming to this Taupo ratepayers group meeting. We're looking at how can we cap our rates. A core fundamental principle of our wonderful country is our private property rights. It's our private property. We look at also the rule of law, individual rights and freedoms, all of these things. And we look at things like Spotify, Netflix, who has Microsoft Office. All of these things you pay a subscription. You pay a subscription for them, but you don't really have them. Back in the day you would have an LP or a CD, you'd have it. And as these rates and charges are coming up, it's in the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab said, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. You'll own nothing." It's like, and as the rates are going up, it's almost like if it doesn't get capped and brought back to providing the good services, the roading, the pipes, the sewage, these sort of things, it's almost like we have a subscription service on our houses, on our private property, which is such a core foundation of our God's own country, New Zealand, which, rule of law, individual rights, private property, your home is your castle. So we're going to have some great... my name's Tristan. I have been living in Taupo for over 30 years now. My children and grandchildren live here. My parents live here. I love this town. It's a great place to be. And a big thank you to our speakers this evening, Phil Shields, who gave a great talk at the Taupo long-term planning submissions, was it? Yeah. Just showing how the rates, that the cost of living is going up, the wages, the rates have increased, is it double compared to the... Four times. So this burden, it puts, the cost of living, rents are more expensive, home ownership is more expensive. It just adds, it snowballs, and it adds struggle to those who can least afford it. And I'll just read this little, because the current Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, has been saying some good things that I think most of us would agree with. If you're a ratepayer, you probably want your council focused on doing the basics brilliantly. Fixing the pipes, filling the potholes, and maintaining local assets quickly, carefully, and cost effectively. And I'd like to acknowledge that the council, to the most part, does that. So they're doing good work. We're not piling onto the councils. We're acknowledging they do that. But nothing in life is free. You expect your rates to pay for that stuff. What you don't expect is to pay for the laundry list of distractions and experiments that are plaguing council balance sheets across the country. And I think we can see examples of that, whether it's how councils are staffed, where their money's going. There's bureaucracy. Our last meeting was how are United Nations climate change policies affecting our rates. So it's not really the real world. There are public servants, they're serving us, we pay the rates, we pay their wages. So this is great to have you all coming here, being assertive, letting your voice be heard. We're going to have time for people to speak and to ask questions of Phil, who's going to do a presentation shortly for about 20-30 minutes, and very happy to have Duncan Campbell here, and he's going to give a presentation. And the information when we talk, he's representing us, and when he goes to his meetings and with his councillors, he'll be sharing, you know, what we would like. That we want our basic services provided, but we don't want the laundry list and the extras, the unnecessary extras. And when the rates go up, as I said, it puts pressure on everyone. And I'd be interested to know Duncan's, and two, with putting the house values up, you know how they went, and they just all of a sudden the rates went up. Is that something that can be, was that a...
I don't really answer that question.
Okay, yeah. Because I know someone brought it up in another meeting about getting your house revalued. You can apply to get your house revalued to a lower rate, because people go, great, my house is worth 1.3 million, I've got all this equity, but now you're paying rates on a $1.3 million house where your house isn't worth 1.3 million because it's a depreciating asset, because the houses need maintenance, like cars and anything.
The valuations have come down in the last 2 years.
Have they?
Yeah.
Have they come down as much as they went up?
Oh, I don't know, I haven't done a percentage on it, but they've certainly come back.
Okay, yeah.
But have your rates come back?
I don't know. Last year they went up 11.75%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they used to be rates were worked out on a different scenario than they are now. It never used to be on your valuation, it was on your square metre.
Oh, the footprint.
Yeah,
Okay.
they applied some.
A different, yeah.
And the land values were a lot lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one other thing Christopher Luxon said, which I thought was good, and things that they're saying that they want councils to do, and if we can just get them behind these positive things. Investigate performance benchmarks for local councils so ratepayers know exactly what they're getting for their rates. Investigate options to limit councils from spending ratepayers' money on pet projects and nice to haves. This is good stuff.
He's going to monitor them too, isn't he?
Yeah. Review the transparency and accountability rules that apply to councils to ensure democratic decision making for ratepayers. So it's good that we hear these senior public servants saying these things, but the days of voting and forgetting and just letting them have at it, that's gone. Now it's the time for us to, guide the ship. Just let, input. Let them know what, this is the way to go, this is what is acceptable spending, this isn't. And turning up like this is showing that people are wanting to take action steps and not just get upset at home when you get your rates wrong, or you see some silly spending happening around town. Yeah. So I'm going to hand over to Phil now for his great talk. I have seen a little bit of it. There's some great information. And after he's given his presentation, we're going to have a 15-minute question and answer time. So you can talk to him. Then Duncan's going to have a talk, and then we're going to have an open time for everyone to speak. Okay, thank you. Don't lean on me.
Thank you, Tristan. Welcome, everybody. For the first time in my life, I made a submission on a long-term plan down at 2 Rank. And why I did that was I lived down at Amori, and I paid my rates for 23 years down there. So I thought, I'm entitled to have my say on this matter. So I actually did a bit of research. And all the information is out there. It's in the annual reports, it's in the long-term plans. The council's not being dishonest in any way, but it's not necessarily putting the information out so people can understand it. So I extracted some information from the council documentation, and I did a submission on a PowerPoint on why the rates should be capped. That was my submission. It wasn't well received, I don't think, by the council CEO, but I was applauded, and it was well received by some of the people who were attending it. So I went away, and I'm retired, I go fishing. I went away and Councillor Campbell contacted me and said, and a few, 3 councillors came to me afterwards and said, that was a good presentation. Councillor Duncan Campbell contacted me and said, would you give your presentation to a meeting? I said, well, yeah, I could do. I have been superseded because the presentation I'll give you is my presentation on why the rates should be capped. I don't have the answer on how we're going to do that. I do have some ideas, but what I should do is give you a bit of background information about where I come from and what entitles me to have an opinion on council infrastructure. So I left school at 17. I worked for a company called Waltham Heating Products. They made factory, commercial and industrial space heating equipment. It was basically a oil tank with kerosene. It was a jet burner on the top, and it fired heat out, and it glowed red when it was working, and it heated the factory. So I left school, I worked in this factory. I'd worked there before for a student, and I worked on the shop floor. And basically I did whatever the foreman asked me to do. I worked on press brakes, guillotines, bending rolls, spot welders, who built these portable heaters. I then thought I could do something better with my life. So I applied and I got a engineering cadetship with a different firm. The firm Waltham Heating Products had 35, 40 staff working for them, so it was quite a small place. I never met Mr. Waltham, I don't know where he was, but I joined a firm called Keaton Sons and Company in Sheffield, a heavy engineering firm, and part of the GKN group. And they were very good to me. They sponsored me to do it wasn't a degree course, it was a course in production engineering, and I got a higher national diploma, HND, in production engineering. And basically I worked in this factory, Keaton Sons and Co. I never met Mr. Keaton either. I never met any of his sons, I don't know where they were. But I worked there, and I spent 6 months in the factory and 6 months at college, the School of Engineering in Sheffield. And everyone who attended the same class as me worked within industry. And it was like a training school to bring people through for supervisory and managerial positions. So I worked there and I got my high national diploma in production engineering. Because back in the late 60s, what Britain did is had factories that actually produced things. It doesn't actually happen anymore, I don't think. So I got my HND. I was 24 and I was running a finished machining section. The factory, previous one had 35 employees. This had 500 employees. It was a factory, it made machine tools. So it made the machines that I'd worked on in my previous job in the other factory. So it produced all these big machines, and it made, had a section that did specialist drilling and machining. So that's my background. The factory would be 2 to 3 times the size of the Mitre 10 building in Taupo, so that gives you some idea of the size. So I worked there, I was quite happy. Then I went home from the factory one day, and my wife said something to me. It changed my life forever. You've got me worried now. You're thinking, what's this? She said to me, hasn't it been a fantastic day? Hasn't the weather been good? I said, sorry, I don't know. I've been in the factory all day. I had no idea. They had one fine day in the year, and I missed it. One fine day in the year, and I missed it. I was stuck in the factory, so I thought, things were happening in the factory, so I changed my job. So I applied for a job at British Gas, and I got it. And British Gas had an excellent in-house training service. It knew how to train its engineers. The engineers there were given full responsibility for every job they did. So I was given a job, and it was to extend the network, to connect a customer, put gas into a subdivision, and you were given a job, you did the calculations, you sized the pipe work, you costed the pipe work, you planned where it was going to be laid, and you had 3 lots of contractors working for British Gas, and they had a price schedule. So you priced all your work on a British Gas price schedule. You had to know everything, every fitting you were going to use on a job, and you used the materials price list from the store. You costed a job up, you applied for financial approval, you got the job, and then it came back on you, and you had to deliver that project. You had to deliver that project to the standard was expected, and you had to deliver it to a cost. You had to control that project to within plus or minus 10% of the budgeted cost that you put in. And there was no cost overruns, they all came into that cost. Because you ran every single job as if you owned it, as if it was your job, and you took responsibility for it. So I worked there for...
Council engineers don't do that.
Worked there for 8 years. And the first year I was there, I worked on a 24-inch high-pressure welded steel pipeline. It was a 4-lane highway out of Ringwood, going round Sheffield, through farmland, and it cut through the Sheffield-Chesterfield interlink main. 24-inch welded steel, and we had to divert it. So my first year, doing infrastructure work, I worked on a 24-inch welded steel pipeline. I became chartered engineer. I worked there for 8 years. The biggest pipeline I laid was, worked on was a 1200mm cast iron main, an old driving main between 2 gasworks. I was sat at my desk, and it was in Sheffield. Population of Sheffield was 1 million people. They had 240,000 gas customers, and I was running a sub-district, North District, assistant district engineer, so I had about 60,000 gas customers. It was really cold a week in February, and I drove to work. Second week was like this, freezing cold with black frosts. I drove to work for the second week, and I thought, there must be somewhere better to live and work than this. A magazine dropped on my desk, and there was a job in Palmerston North for a network engineer, gas distribution engineer in Palmerston North, New Zealand. So I went home, talked to my wife, had a chat, and I applied for it. 12 months later, I arrived in Palmerston North. Landed at Palmerston North Airport, and I was met by the engineer who appointed me. He interviewed me in London, and he met me at the airport. He had his sidekick with him, his deputy, and he said, "Oh, look, there's our new engineer. He's brought some plans with him." I said, "Oh, what are the plans? I had a PVC tube." I said, "Oh, sorry." I said, "It's my fishing rods." My fishing rods. The first day at work, the Palmerston North Gas Company was formed in 1889. It was a private company in 1889. In 1915, the City Council took it over. City Council took it over because it was perceived that the gas company was ripping off its ratepayers. They were charging too much. So the council took it over, and the council ran it. It's like cities and towns in states, to a certain extent in Australia as well. The City Council did everything. It ran the gas network, it ran the electricity network. The most important person in the City Council was the city engineer. He ran everything. He did the roading, he did all the pipes, he looked after the sports fields, the parks and reserves, and the swimming pool. But the city engineer was the head honcho. There was a city treasurer, there was a town planner, and that was about it. City engineer, city treasurer, town planner. Then there was a town clerk. Well, the name itself tells you what the person was. He was a clerk, he was a pen pusher. I'm talking about 40 years ago, when I was doing this job. So somehow this town clerk has morphed into now a CEO, being paid $1,000 a day, and more in some councils. We're just a town clerk. So, I worked for the gas company. The first person interviewed, the first person I met was a personnel officer, David Morgan. And he signed me up because I had to sign a contract and I was bonded for 3 years. And he had himself and the typist. They did all the hiring and firing for the council. No one else. There was no HR department in those days. So I think it's going to get back to basics. But I worked for it was the gas department. It was completely autonomous from council. It did its own thing. It didn't extract any money from rates. It didn't receive any money from rates. In fact, it returned a dividend to the council every year. And it funded all its own expansion. The electricity department did exactly the same, funded its own expansion. I had an engineering manager, Ted Williams, and the only thing that we used from the council was we hired an office space, like we're going to do in this new castle that's being built in town. We hired a small office space. It would be twice the size of this room for all the staff. We hired that on the second floor of the council building. And the electricity department were next to us. We walked down the corner, past the electricity department to the gas department. I heard my manager argue. He said, I'm not going to do that. Someone from council said, you're going to move out. You're going to relocate to this other area in the council building. He said, why? He said, because we're going to do the offices. He said, you're not touching my offices. He said, there's nothing wrong with them. He said, no, you've got to do it. He said, look, I've got a business to run. I'm not going to disrupt that and move out. So he kicked a big fuss. He said, anyway, he said, once you do it up, you're just going to charge me extra rent for the office space. So he refused, but he was overridden by council. He said, you're not coming into my office. The council said, this is we have to have a corporate image. And we were owned by the council and we had to comply with this corporate image. He kicked a fuss and he didn't. He said, you can come into reception, put a new reception and just leave the rest alone. And I'm not paying any extra. But he had to comply. The next time I heard him having a big argument was when he was a gas engineer manager and he was retiring. And the council said, we want to replace you with a gas manager. He said, no, I'm not over my dead body. He said, why is that? He said, because it needs an engineer to run the place. They know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about. As soon as you put a gas manager in, it opens the door for anyone. And I hope there's no accountancy, but his words were, it'll let the bean counters in and the business will be stuffed, is what he said. He actually wasn't overruled, he got his way. He got his way. I was running the gas network. I counted up last night. I had 36 staff. I ran the gas network for 12 years. I had 36 staff. I never increased the staff numbers once. I took the number of customers from 10,000 to 22,000. We reticulated Fielding, we reticulated Ashurst, we didn't lay a pipeline unless someone was going to pay for it. We got a return on people who were hooking onto the gas pipeline. And there are lots of big pipelines, lots of special projects, completely different to England. It was, our work over there was heavy industry. Here it was agricultural. The lines that I ran were to grain dryers and milk factories, Longbourn Dairy Company. New Zealand Pharmaceuticals took a pipeline under the Manawatu River to a firm, New Zealand Pharmaceuticals, that used waste products from the freezing works to do whatever they did, tablets, medicine. The Singapore battalion came back to New Zealand in '87, and we got approached by the Ministry of Works, can we convert their boilers? So we ran a pipeline out there. The new manager came in, and he was a Scotsman, Dave Kubrick. His father was Polish, his mother was Scottish. Has anyone worked for a Scotsman? He was very tight with his own money, and he was very tight with the company money. And the mains foreman, Amos Larkin, he had a car. He would leave work on a Friday and the car would be filthy, because his job was supervising sites, or Didn't matter, his car was filthy. He would come in on Monday, like showroom condition. It was just a 1.3 Toyota Corolla wagon. I saw him on side once, and the bonnet was up. I said, Amos, what's the matter with this? It was a 4-year-old car. He said, oh, no, he said, I've just got to get to town. I'm waiting for someone, telecom engineer or someone to do a markup. He had the bonnet up, and he was polishing the engine bay. I thought, I'm going to buy this vehicle. So I said to Dave, I said, that vehicle's coming up for renewal. I said, look at the book price and give me a value. He said, oh no, he said, it'll be going to auction. And you'll have to go and bid on it. I said, let me know when it comes up. And in a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, he said, it'll be there this Thursday, 10 o'clock. I said, oh good, I'll go. And he said to me, and you'll be taking a half-day's holiday. It was Scots-Polish. I'll digress a bit. I was out walking, and I met a Maori guy come towards me, and he was walking his dogs. They weren't Lachmans, they were just Labradors. And I stopped and spoke to him. He spoke back to me with a Scots accent, a strong Scots accent. So I got chatting to him and had a chat, and he said, you know, my life's not been easy. I said, why is that? He said, the Maori part of me wants to party up all the time, and the Scots side doesn't want to pay for it.
Did you get the car?
Yeah. No, I did. I went and got the car, and I said, here I did. I said, I left at 9:30, I was back by 11:30, he's 2 hour leave, and he took a 2 hour leave. So, we were very busy. I was 36 staff, and I never set another person on. People left when we had our own training system. If someone left or retired, we had an automatic progression where we moved people up. So we did everything with our own labour. And I work with contract labour as well. There's no difference between council using direct labour or contract labour. What it comes down to is the quality of supervision we put on the job. So that's all it is. So I was approached by a council engineer. And he said to me, Phil, he said, you've laid lots of plastic lines, all the lines were the gas pipe or plastic or welded steel. He said, we laid a lot of plastic. He said, do you want to try some of pumping soon for me? I said, I can have a look at that. So I did. It was 3 kilometres in grass, with 3 crossings in a state highway and a ditch crossing, and then dropped it into a manhole. So I had a look, and I said to Dave, the Scotsman, I said, here's a job. I said, should we do it? He said, can you do it? I said, of course we do it. We did all our work then with R22, R30, R60, 65 train trenches, ditch-witch train trenches. It was quicker than anybody had now with pipes. Put the best crew on the job, knocked it out, and he was monitoring the cost. He said, come and see me. He said, what extra cost coming in on this project? I said, there's none, Dave. He said, what about the reinstatement? I said, what reinstatement? He said, the state highway crossings. I said, there's none. We didn't dig the crossings, we fussed underneath. He said, there's no more cost to it. And he said, bloody hell. He said, go and get some more work from them. And I said, but you said it wasn't our core business. When I did, he said, this is the margin I want. I won't tell you what I don't want to tell you what a margin the Scotsman put on. It was quite high. He said, this is the margin we want, and it's not, because it's not our core business. He did a job. He said, go and get some more work. I said, it's not our core business. He said, it is now. So, had a good time, and he then dropped a newspaper clipping on my desk. There was Wellington Gas Company, who in the late 90s were renewing the whole of their old low pressure cast iron network, the whole of the city. He said, here, he said, price one of them up. So I priced put a tender in for the renewal of pipes in Newlands and Johnsonville. And I got awarded. And I ran crews down there, and my office was a shipping container. I didn't need a fancy office. Crews knew what we were doing. So, ran that contract. Max Bradford came in, he restructured the gas and electric business, restructured completely. The council separated out the gas, separated out the electric, and we had our own business. We set an accountant on, the only thing he did, he brought across the payroll and the invoicing system, which was done by council. We just did it all ourselves. managed it all ourselves. We swapped over from 1 week from the council payroll to the next week was our own, a company called Progress Systems, was our own payroll system. Everyone got paid, no problem. I said our biggest customer was Longburn Dairy Company. Longburn Dairy Company pumped more gas in season than the whole of the Palmerston City. It had a casein plant and a milk powder plant. I was at my desk and the new accountant stormed in. You could see steam coming out of his ears. And he said, "You've got a big problem. What are you doing sitting here? Don't you know your area? Don't you know what you're managing?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The gas sales are way down at Longburn. You've got a stuck meter or something. Get out and fix it." I said, "Calm down and look out the window. Look out the window and tell me what you see." "I don't understand." I said, "Look, do you see the grass growing?" He said, "Just go and fix the problem." I said, "The grass isn't growing. The cows are drying off. There's no milk going in the factory. There's no stuck meter." He fell on his knees, he put his head in his hands, and he said, "I just divided the annual figure by 12. Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "No, meter. You didn't ask me. You didn't ask me." And I said, "If you want to control the flow of gas into the Longburn Dairy Company, there's only one person you should speak to. And you should have done it last year, because that person is a bull in a paddock. That's the only person who can control the flow of milk in the factory." And he walked out of my office. And I said, "I don't think the Scotsman's going to be very pleased with you." Anyway, about 2 years later, Max Bradford's things came through. We were taken over and I was made redundant. I went and worked on a contract in Auckland, managing contract works. I had a big accident and I applied for a job. I was off work for 12 months. I had a big accident and I applied for a job and then went and had a holiday in Maritime. I was self-employed and I paid the taxman a huge amount of money, and I said to my wife, "I'm going on holiday before he comes and has his hand in my back pocket and wants to take some more out." So I went to Maritime and I came back and I was on holiday. There were 6 messages on my phone, 5 of them from the city council saying, "Where are you? Don't you answer your phone? Do you want an interview? What are you doing?" So I went and had an interview and I said to him, "We're not going to give you this job. We know what you did on the gas company. Come and work at our operations depot and lift the productivity there. And do the same as you did with you guys at the gas." So I thought about it for a while and thought, "Oh, why not? Yeah, always up for a challenge." I went down there and I actually went and resigned from ACC. I went to ACC and I said, "I want to hand in my notice. I want to fill in the form." I said, "Pardon? I want to come off ACC." He said, "I don't know what form to give you. No one's ever asked to come off ACC." I came off ACC and I took a cut in money to take a job as an assistant engineer for council. And I was assistant engineer 20 years earlier. So I went to council and I could write a book about the happenings there. I won't go into detail, but I'll say that quite a few people signed their own leaving cards by not being able to follow instructions. Signed their own leaving card. Fate's played a big part in my life in lots of ways, and the civil works manager got seconded to the. I worked out an operation there. He got seconded to the castle. It was called Bullshit Castle, where he went. Seconded to the council buildings. And they said, "Will you be acting civil works manager?" I said, "Yeah, do that, do a bigger job." And then a little while later, I was civil works manager. You like this bit. I was civil works manager for like 2 months. Because we got a new mayor in. The mayor came in, and he must have said to the CEO, "How many managers work here?" And he said, "I don't know." I said, "How many?" He said, "Far too many. Get rid of them." So my boss came down and he said, "Look," he said, "we've got to do some restructure." I thought, "Oh, maybe redundant again." He said, "Are you bothered what we call you?" I said, "No, I'm not bothered at all. You call me anything as long as I get paid." And he said, "How about we call you civil works supervisor?" I said, yeah. So that was it. Beware of council restructures. No one lost their jobs. They just changed people's titles. It's stupidity. So I got sent heaps of work. Chris Pepper was the infrastructure manager. He'd give me as much work as I could do. I ran 2 water construction crews, all full time, doing water renewals in the city. Did sewer renewals. And I was saying that in any big organisation, there will always be people who rise to the level of their own incompetence, to get promoted beyond their own ability. I had to do a programme of works for a 5 metre deep sewer. It was tearing down with me. This sewer was going to be laid alongside the curb and channel, tied up against the curb and channel. And I got a phone call. And they said, "Where are you? You've done a programme of work, you're supposed to be on site." I said, "What windowless building are you living in?" I said, "Look outside." I said, "I'm not going to open a trench in this weather. First thing that happened is 5 metres deep, you're going to lose the curb and channel, you're going to lose half the footpath." I said, "I'll be there when the conditions allow." So you had people making decisions who didn't know what to do. Anyway, I've got plenty of work, lots of work. I had a word with the Chris Pepper infrastructure manager, and he was having problems with dirty water into town. So I said, "Why don't you interconnect the 2 rivers and put a pig trap in?" He said, "What's a pig trap?" In gas and oil lines, we ran pigs. You know, swabbing pigs, cleaning pigs, gauging pigs. And it was called a pig because it was like pig-shaped. It travels through the pipeline. And it's also been shown that PIGs, pipeline inspection gauge, is one of the pigs. If you ran them down a steel line, as they came into the trap, they would squeal. You could hear the squealing down a steel line. So that's why they got the name pig. So I handed him my notes. He said, "That sketch you did," he said, "for that pig trap or swab trap, would you come back and build it for him? I'd be tired." And handed my notes in. I said, "Anyone can do it." He said, "No, I want you to come back and do it." So I said, "Yeah, it's only to give me these people, told me which people I wanted on the job." And so I finished my career. Over 30 years of laying pipelines. Started on a 24-inch welded steel high pressure gas line. Finished it on a 24-inch tub water main. So that's a brief history of what I've done and what it enables me to speak about council operations. So that's the swap station, lowered in position. Tied into one of the truck mains. That's the main gate to extract the swap from the chamber. A bit younger me there was 25 years ago, I think. Whenever. I've been retired 17 years as well. That's the chamber. It's all hidden underground. There's just a manhole and you access it. And that's the final tie-in. So, last job I did. Now, this is my submission. Can I ask you, if you had to measure inflation, how would you measure inflation? What sort of measure is it to measure inflation in New Zealand? Does anyone know?
Consumer price index, is that it?
Yeah, CPI. Yeah, measures inflation. It comes out every 6 months, and it's a measure of inflation that uses, I think, 11 different items that a normal household would consume. So it's all your living costs, it's your petrol costs, your cost of food, your cost of shoes, whatever. So the CPI is a recognised measure of inflation in this country and elsewhere. You can see the change. This was from April to April. So the average wage, roughly, they've doubled in 20 years. That's what's happened to them in 20 years. Now to add on the Taupo Council rates, and this is just for my property, by the way. They've done 4 times in 20 years. So a significant increase. I plotted my rates. My computer broke down. I couldn't print, I couldn't do anything. Sorry, couldn't print, couldn't do anything. So I got a piece of paper, and a picture says 1,000 words, so I drew a graph out on a piece of paper. My paper wasn't big enough, so I contacted a friend. He said, I've got a piece of wallpaper. I said, that'll do. So I drew down a piece of wallpaper. I eventually got my computer fixed, I did it online. But it was a wet Sunday, and I thought, wow, I'd kept every single rates invoice from Taupo Council since I bought my holiday home in 2001, so I could compare them all. And that's what the rates do. Now that's rates from my property, and the lady said, oh, valuations are going up. That's a batch I bought. It was a 2-bedroom batch, and I retired and I extended. I got all consented, but I did a lot of work myself. I extended, and council revalued it at $1,070,000. I had a bit of a dispute with council. I won't go there, so it doesn't matter. But that house is supposed to be $1 million house, and no, it's not. It's nowhere near $1 million house in Taupo. But you see what happened here. What happened is this point here, where it goes up. That was 2011, 12? 2011, 12. That was when council changed from its land value rating to its capital value rating. My rates were 24% in that time, 24% increase. Who was the CEO then? Remember? Rob Williams. Remember the guy Rob Williams? Not Bobby Williams, not the singer, but the guy Rob Williams. He put the rates up and maybe he couldn't sleep at night. Because look what happened. For 4 years, my rates on my property didn't go up at all. Didn't rise at all. So that proves the council can cap its rates. It's not that they didn't get any money. I think they were still getting 58 million. It's a huge amount of money to run a little place like Taupo. They could cap their rates. What happened in 2016, 17? It started taking off here. Oh, I know. It was a change of government then, wasn't it? Change of government, put things in. This is the scary bit. Here, 2020. I believe what happened then was the Labour government, with COVID, got a complete mandate to do whatever it wanted. Didn't ask you whether you wanted, never asked you anything. It was going to put in three waters programme. If you'd asked anyone here, would you have accepted 3 waters? I don't think many people would at all. I don't think it was in our best interest. And that's when it started taking off. And this is the bit that I object to. And I got my rates done. The proposal for the long-term plan said it was going to go up 11%. My rates went up 15.3, 6.8, 17.3, and then they're going to put another 11% on. What council doesn't understand is they talk about these rates increases, but they're cumulative. It's a huge increase on top of a huge increase they've already given me.
Like compound interest.
Compound interest, exactly what it is. Yeah. So that's my rates. So I looked at it and I picked the house in Tulane. I thought mine's supposedly $1 million, but it's not. I picked the house in Tulane at a capital value of $375,000, an old hydro house. And exactly the same things happened. In fact, they're going to do worse of it. It's increasing exactly the same. So it doesn't make any difference what property you have in Taupo, your council rates are going up. They don't care whether you're low paid, high paid, or what, your council rates are going up. Compare that to the CPI. And that's the CPI. That's the true measure of inflation. My rates were 844. At this point here, they're 4,021. They've just confirmed to me that mine will be 4,500. They're up here by the end of September. There, I think they're going to Taupo, Tulane house, I think they're going about 3.2. Huge amount for a low value house in Tulane. Had they kept to the CPI, my rates there would have been $1,332. From 844 to 1,332. Council doesn't use the CPI. It uses a measure of an index called the Local Government Cost Index. It uses a local government cost index. It could use a CPI, but it doesn't, and I appreciate why. It says it uses an index that links to its expenditure. And council's expenditure is different to my expenditure and everyone else's. It has, oh sorry, I was explaining this is really good. It has costs like bitumen for roadworks. It has costs of plastic pipe and steel pipe. It has costs of civil construction for stop banks and subdivisions, whatever else. So those costs are built into what's called the local government cost index. But it also includes the cost of its own wages and salaries, part of the index. Now, if you are saying in this room, would you like council to set your rates based on the local government cost index that is linked to their own salaries and wages? I'll say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to agree to that. But that's what you do. That's what happens to you. So the higher line is the local government cost index over that period of time. That would be okay. I'd be quite happy with that. Except for the fact it's linked to council's wages and salaries. And that's a big problem that I have. Council uses this local government cost index, and it's a con. In every annual report, it pats itself on its back and says, are we doing well? We've kept within our own affordability benchmarks of the local government cost index. At this time, it's plus 2.5%. So it's like, you've got CPI, which might be running at 3% now, or 4%. They've just add another 2.5% onto it, onto their local government cost index. It says that they keep within their own self-imposed affordability benchmark. It takes a bit to get your head around. They say the total rates revenue must not exceed 80% of operating revenue. What's the operating revenue for a council? It gets its rates. Where else does it get its money from? It does get it got some very generous subsidies from the Labour government, called bribery money. But other than that, where does it get its money from? It gets its money from user charges. Gets its money from fees and charges. Alcohol licence fees, animal management, food licence, you name it all. Solid waste, housing for the elderly fees, library fees, pool fees, superloose fees. There's 25 different fees and charges which council gets its money from. And as far as I'm aware, that's the only other operating income it gets. So if it's going to keep its total rates must not exceed 80% of its operating revenue, how can it lift its operating revenue? It's going to charge you more for these user fees. Well, that's like heads I win, tails you lose, isn't it? You've got it both ways. It also says rate increase may not exceed the forecast local government index plus 2.5%. They change that as they like. They've just announced now that it's going to be plus 5%. Local government cost index plus 5%. This is for the next 10 years. To fund all renewals on water infrastructure. I don't think it's the local government cost index benefits councils, it doesn't benefit you. It's using an index that benefits itself and disadvantages all ratepayers. It can't even keep to its own set performance measures. It exceeded the local government cost index plus 2.5% because it built extra houses. You don't have to be a brain surgeon, you can drive through anywhere in town and think, wow, look at all the houses. And I've said for years, all these extra houses, wow, look at all the extra rates revenue they're getting. So they're getting extra rates revenue. I calculate, I think it was 1,592 houses were built over those periods, 2019 to 23. Multiply that by 4,000 or 4,500, they've got an extra $7 million in. $7-8 million just from the extra houses. That $7-8 million isn't just a one-off payment. These ratepayers are paying that every year. So how's it going to fix this problem? It's got more rates revenue than it planned. It's going to lift the index to 5%. The whole thing's a joke. But as a saying, not be too rude, bullshit beats brains. And that's what council's doing. This is a real road. Did you know that happened? Do you know the council said an extra 55 staff? Cost $4.5 million. So wage and salary is now amount to 35% of total rates.
I complained about it until you pen.
Yep, good, well done. This is a presentation where I think I was cut short here, you've run out of time. But that's fair enough. I actually toned it down. And I thought I'll be respectful. All this information is available from my annual reports. What I said, many ratepayers who have studied this about will find it's hard to accept. I was going to put the arrogance and greed of this council. To me, it's arrogance and greed, but I toned it down. So this is what they proposed in the long-term plan. The sewer rate's going to go up by 23%, your water rate's going up by 30%. Every single ratepayer will be paying $2,000 fixed charges on sewer and water. Why? How can they justify that? I said no to increase sewer and water fixed charges. Hopefully you can read that at the back. And I used their own documents to explain why. Our district is relatively young. Of course it is. Palmer's North, its gas system was put in 1889. If you go to any town in New Zealand and look for the bank or look for the post office, it'll have a date above it. I'm not sure where Taupo is, but in Taupo in the 650s and 60s, that plumbers roads and septic tanks in the place. It's a relatively new town, and the infrastructure is new. They've said that in all these. We've recently upgraded coal water and wastewater assets, resulting in the build-up of cash reserves. That was there by 2025. Where are the cash reserves? They should still be there. That was in 2015-25 long-term plan. Extensive programme of works addressing ageing water and wastewater infrastructure. By their own admission, have done all these works. So why do they need to put up the water and the sewer charges? If it's in good condition, that's what you're telling us in the annual reports, why do you need to now to be in need of urgent replacement, doesn't it? This is the bit that really gets me. The government gave encouragement to councils to adopt the three waters. 8.32 million of government stimulus funding for the three waters reform package. If the pipes were in urgent need of replacement, why wasn't the 8 million spent on that?
Because Wellington needs the water system.
Well, we're not going to give it to Wellington, Roger, but we don't need it here. If you add up the figures that they got from the Labour government, it was 20 million for the town centre redevelopment. I read Councillor Park on the papers. Someone asked her, what does this redevelopment cost for the town centre? And it was, oh look, we've got a really good deal here. A really good deal. It only cost us 21 million and another 4 million for ratepayers. It costs 4 million for you ratepayers to put towards a town centre rejuvenation or whatever it is. And they got 20.6 million from the government. Well, why didn't they put the 20.6 million into the water infrastructure and save ratepayers $4 million?
Yeah.
They got other money. I asked the question too, Annie. They spent, what was 6 million or something. They did Portuada Street, Curtin Channel, and put new trees in. I said, why have you spent the money there? If it was my business, I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be spending money doing a Curtin Channel that didn't really need replacement. And they said, oh, because it was a shovel-ready project. I'd be astounded if Taupo Council employed engineers I'd be astounded if they didn't have shovel-ready projects. They must have. You've got a renewal programme, you must know where you're going to renew your pipes. If I'd said to the Scotsman, if he'd said, what's all your men doing? Standing around. I said, Dave, We haven't got any shovel-ready projects for them. I'm still working on it. I would have been down the road, it's a joke.
Hey Phil, we're
Yeah.
up to 6:35 now, so you've gone, is it just,
Oh,
yeah.
2 slides.
Yeah.
So this one I'm saying, yesterday it's linked to CPI, reset to the 2021 levels. Instead of doing that, it went like that. I don't know if you'll ever accomplish that. But the state of Victoria, it put a directive out to cap their rates in 2016. 10 years prior to 2016, their rates were rising at an average of 6% a year. And they said, you cap your rates at the level of inflation. If you want to spend more than 2% inflation, 3% inflation, you put it out to your ratepayers and you ask them whether they want to pay for it. If they want to pay for it, then you can put it up higher than that. So in 2016, they capped their rates. The 8 years after 2016, their rates were held at 2.25% increase. What I'm saying is if that can happen in Victoria, why can't it happen here? Why can't we force that to happen here? And my final slide is I decided to mark Taupo Council on their performance. I decided to be a teacher and mark them on their performance. I didn't show this slide. I was being respectful. They put out a long-term plan every 10 years and they forecasted the rates are going to be this is going to happen. I'm thinking, why bother? Why waste all your time and your staff time? Just say, we're capping our rates at 3% a year. And they would achieve it.
You've got to employ people to make pie charts.
Oh, sorry. This is why I've said, no more, if you cap your rates, no more distributable ratepayers, more cash in ratepayers' pockets, all go out now, more meals at restaurants, you'd support local businesses, you'd be employing more staff, it'd be a win-win. I don't know if you can see, basically I'm arguing with sure. They said this year here, 2.69 and then revised it to 3.7 and then 8.67, I paid 15.82. So I scored them out of 9 years, I scored a pass rate of 3 out of 9. They failed on all the other ones. 2 it was in, same, 3 out of 9. Yeah? So why bother putting all your effort in to do a long-term plan, say you're going to do these rates increases at its value? We've got to manage our own costs in accordance with the CPI. You can't go and say to your boss, I'd like an increase, and can I have a plus 5% increase this year, please? You can't do that. So we have to manage our own costs. It's about time the council manages its own costs. So let's have a discussion about it. Anyway, hey, don't we live in a great place? The first photograph was taken out of the lake.
If you stripped out the salary and wages,
Yeah.
would that basically cover the cost or reflect the cost of infrastructure inflation? Maintaining the infrastructure and everything else.
Depends what
The
it is.
stuff that they do that we don't do as the CPI does.
Oh, I haven't got an answer to that one, but I'm telling you the council wages and rates are 35% of your total rates bill. And we pay them $82 million a year. That's a huge amount of money.
On wages?
No, 29 million on wages, but the total
29 a year.
29 million on wages,
Wages.
and the total rates take is 88 million. Surely you can manage to run a district like this for that kind of money.
Phil, can I just ask, is it right that the local government, when they're talking about setting things, that the number of staff who are employed under you is also counted in setting your salary?
I believe that's the case, yeah.
So there's no incentive for them to get rid of staff, is there?
What you can do, you can put in a request to council, and they will respond. You put in a request on the Local Government Official Information and Management Act. And I focused on water and sewer. I know a little bit about it, but that is where the bulk of your cost increase is coming from. And they said on 55 staff. So I said, how many of the 55 staff are employed on the 3 waters? And they came back to me and they said, 8. next question, what are the other 47 staff doing? What are they all doing? I don't believe Taupo Council runs its own works crews. I think it's all contracted out. Yeah. So why do you need all these staff if you've got contractors? And I'll give full marks. We've had has anyone here had a fractured water main? Have you had water mains blowing up in your street?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Regular.
Regularly? Have they replaced it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're usually the same day within hours.
Yeah, so they should, yeah. I have no problem. I think the council should run its infrastructure to the full life of what it is. Pipelines are had a lifetime of 120 years. Wallet steel, cathodically protected, or polyethylene line was 120 years.
That was one of my many complaints for my 10-year submission,
Yeah.
which was 10 pages.
So I don't mind. Council should renew its infrastructure, but shouldn't
As and when it wears out, surely,
exactly.
not just for the Herald.
Not just for the Herald, yeah. I mean, you've got to ask yourself.
But can we take and factor in the pumice? Does it?
Yeah, you can factor in the pumice. What a fantastic place to do civil construction. It's brilliant. You can dig it yourself with a teaspoon, can you? It's fantastic ground. It's not rock or anything. Yeah. So, yeah.
Does that, all of your income there, does that factor in developers' fees that come into council from like?
Yeah, I agree. I think the other income is development contributions as well, so that comes in as well. But if they want to lift their rates more than 80%, they've got to lift those fees as well. So it's still us poor people have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think.
Why should I pay for somebody that?
If I can be fair, I think the big issue here is that the Labour government was going to force free waters on people. And when I did my research, I'm surprised I didn't get divorced. I stayed up at 2:30 doing this research, and I Googled this. I actually Googled and I got Nanaia Mahuta's diary. I got into Nanaia Mahuta's diary. And that was a local government official information request put in for a set period of time. And she was appointed as local government minister, I think, October 26, 2017. Within days, she was actually round the country visiting councils and mayors and selling her Three Waters campaign. The Three Waters started before that. If you go back to 2011-12, her father, who was Sir Robert Mahuta, gave a talk. And he said, whoever controls the water controls the country. And he's quite correct. So I think the Labour government, without a mandate, wanted to force Three Waters on everyone. Everyone put their hands up and obviously objected to it. The Labour government got kicked out.
But we've still got remnants left. Timana OTY
Yep.
is now going to say to our council that water left over from the treatment station cannot be discharged into the river.
I think you're going to ask yourself some questions
And if you
here.
think of the cost of that,
Yeah.
and even worse than that, the water from the headwaters of the Wanganui River is diverted into Lake Taupo. They won't be able to do that because Timana OTY says that you cannot mix the water from one catchment area with another.
It's an issue that needs addressing.
addressing.
I think the real issue here is it's not the failing water infrastructure in Taupo. And I believe Taupo had a brilliant opportunity. They could have done off its own bat and said, we don't need this extra money on water. We'll be the first town, the first council in New Zealand to say, we will cap our rates. You'll be inundated with people who want to come here and live here. The place would be booming. They could have capped their rates, and they can still cap them. Unfortunately, what's happened is Tamati ROI, or the water regulator, has now come in and put these huge standards on water supply. Has anyone here got crook from drinking Taupo water and anything on? Got sick? Did he ask us what he wanted this money spending? And there's a huge amount of money they're going to spend. So I think the person who's running the water regulator is Nanaia Mahuta's sister, Tipper Mahuta. So I think the Three Waters has morphed into a different animal. We just don't know it. The big part that concerns me is, if you look at Turangi wastewater, I want to consult with iwi, and I can appreciate the cultural aspects of it. I want to consult with iwi and find a suitable site. Well, they've been consulting with iwi since 2018. They've been doing it for 6 years. In their own annual plans, they said, you've had the long-term plan, we'll either come up with 6 million and we'll do a quick fix and continue working with iwi, or we'll continue with iwi and work on a long-term plan to spend 18 million by 2030. But we don't have a site, and we don't know whether we'll have the answer in 2030. What's all this costing us as ratepayers?
I really appreciate it. We have Duncan have his time is heading towards 7, so we'll just give a big thank you.
It's kind of a colourful version of Phil's, really, pointing out, these rate forecasts. I'm not sure we could really believe them when they tell us. We've just got a bit of a blip the first couple of years. Don't worry, it'll settle down. It's been a little. I mean, granted, from 2019 onwards, things have been a little bit unsettled. But anyway, but I mean, it's. I don't have to harp on the significant effect to people on fixed incomes, retirees, except that to point out the obvious that it's not very sustainable if you want to stay living in your own home unless you start having some other income streams.
They want you to go into a prison.
Take it.
Just arrow on the right.
Oh. All right. You heard about Chris Luxon's speech a couple of weeks ago. You may have heard about local government New Zealand slamming them somewhat, which gave rise to some confirmation. I'll just skip through them. Wellbeing statements to go from the Local Government Act. My interpretation of wellbeing statements in the Local Government Act is that they give left-leaning councils and governments the licence to do whatever they please, really, without the hassle of conforming to any actual needs. And if you look at various versions of the Local Government Act the last 20 years, these wellbeing statements seem to come and go and put back in with successive governments. Performance benchmarks to measure one council against another, as far as I can tell, which I don't think that's an easy thing to do. One data point I think would be interesting to measure though for councils would be staff plus consultant cost per head of population, because staff numbers alone is not a very good indicator just taken in isolation, because when a council is doing its best to do all the work in-house, it can be held against them. And I have worked in a council before which tried extraordinarily hard to do everything in-house, and sometimes to its own detriment, actually. Third is limiting expenditure of nice-to-haves. I don't think we are a Wellington, which have you heard, if you listen to Chris Luxon's speech, it was one of part of his criticism, which has spent up large in a $180 million conference centre at the expense of their water pipe infrastructure. I think the estimate was they're losing something between 30 and 40% of the water they're pushing out is leaking out. But I think this place has a few contenders in that category, which I'll allude to in the next slide. And this sort of thing is a substantial motivator, I think, behind the idea of a rates cap on expenditure, which, if not imposed from above, which may happen or not, could be voluntarily adopted, as Phil was alluding to. Fourth, review transparency and accountability rules. I mean, I certainly agree that something needs to be done here. The Local Government Act does not grant assured access to information for elected members like me, and I've experienced more than my fair share of non-answers and obfuscations since being elected. I've certainly come to appreciate that my idea of representing the best interests of constituents does not always seem to align with the best interests of Taupo District Council as some others see it. And I'll just highlight that, yes, I'm speaking not on behalf of all of council, but only my experience. So necessaries or niceties, this is the local examples. Top left, it's not council but NZTA, your money all the same. 5 kilometres of wire rope barrier, State Highway 1 recently installed between the airport and State Highway 5. I mean, in my capacity as a staffing engineer with access to the police crash data records, I can actually say that $6 million expenditure was a nicety. Not only that, but it will increase maintenance costs for that road, and it could even increase the chance of a serious crash happening just by its presence in the middle of the road. The middle is the Taupo Town Transformation Project, which is a little bit unfair to include because no one ever really claimed it as a necessary. But I will say something about that space. I mean, making that space more amenable to pedestrians could have been done a long time ago for a whole lot less, though, a whole lot less money.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be as quite as pretty, but.
You know, parking in the middle is horrible, isn't it? You can't get in and out.
Bottom right is a new council building, or rather leased building. I mean, there's water under the bridge now, but like the $180 million Wellington Conference Centre, I mean, I think our Prime Minister could rightfully ask whether we really did need to demolish the old building on Lake Terrace in the first place.
We can answer that for you.
Look, and because I happen to be a practicing civil engineer specialising in transport, I'll just use these next few slides to point out some opportunities, examples for savings in infrastructure. I call this thing Vision Hero, something I came up with a few years ago with the catchphrases. First example on the left, that roundabout at Arrowsmith, Kettle Drive, which I believe could have been done for a fraction of the 1 or 2 million put into it a couple of years ago. I estimated something like 400 grand would have done an adequate enough job. On the right is a simple signal meter that I forwarded to council back in 2017 or so, that I think could have been just as effective treatment for that Norman Smith Wairaki Drive intersection to Nukahow, and I'm talking it would cost for less than 20% of the price of that signalised intersection. Doing stuff cheaper, again, the theme is that Robert Street, Ratepayers Street intersection. A trial roundabout, Dunedin's been doing it for in the order of 10-15 grand just a couple of years ago. They don't need to cost $1 million. I think that could be a viable solution for at least the short to medium term. And I mean, they're cheap enough to trial, and if they don't work out like everyone wants them to, you can always pull them out. The third is the Control Gates Bridge, which I believe presents an eminently viable long-term solution as it is, without resort to any new bridge structure as is currently being proposed. I think $70 million is being put in a long-term plan for it. If done smartly using tidal flow traffic lanes as done elsewhere, I haven't seen this option properly considered thus far.
Aren't they talking about the erosion? It was in the paper.
Yeah, that's
all about the erosion on the north and south side.
I gather that something's going on there. I don't think it's to do with any new structure.
No, it's not to do with the new structure, but that's going to happen over December to February. That'll be great. We've got Iron Man. Oh God, I'm glad I don't get into it.
And I'll just finish with this final slide. I think almost the most important thing to add to this discussion actually. Ratepayer advocacy. It's come to my attention that Taupo does not have any active militant, if you like, ratepayer advocacy groups, as happens in some place elsewhere. I mean, it's great having these meetings, and this is wonderful. Getting the message out and actually understood to the wider population. It's not a simple thing to actually happen, and I think something like this is long overdue. For example, the Auckland Ratepayers Alliance a few years ago put out full-page adverts in the Herald with salary bands of all the top management in Auckland Council and Auckland Transport. Coincidentally leading to the resignation of the Watercare CEO a few months after. He was on about 800k.
760 was on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was exactly related to that, but and interestingly, while Googling, I stumbled across the existence of a ratepayer residence society in small town Oakuni, which apparently was formed just a year or two ago, after Ruapehu District Council gifted some public land to Kaingaora without talking to any of their constituents about it. I thought that was really interesting. Look, I haven't delved in how much these organisations operate, but I gather some do require annual subscriptions payments and go on donations, because there are expenses involved in doing this thing and getting messages out to the population. And I believe the Oakuni one, forming into a legal incorporation has some legal advantages as well. I think there's something like if costs, if you take I'm not sure if this is the case, but I think it's if you take a case against the council or someone, but you miss it and you can't have the costs put back onto you. It's something like that. There are some advantages to that. And of course, I'm not in a position, being an elected member in council, to kick off something like that. But yeah, I just want to put that out there as I think we can do more in this space. And that's all I have to say.
Duncan, how did Auckland Council and Christchurch Council, councillors managed to force the council into moving the fees to the local government New Zealand? Is that something Taupo is going to be looking at?
Oh yeah, they withdrew from local government New Zealand.
Money.
The thinking in there is, at the moment in Taupo District Council, is it's better to be in and out and part of the conversation.
How much is it costing us?
It's in the order of 70,000.
Yeah, so why?
That's just the membership. That doesn't include any of the travel and accommodation for going to all the little hoo-has around the place. I've got to say, I've been to one of the two of the local meetings, and they are useful for meeting people and things like that. But as far as Auckland and Christchurch, I'm pretty sure Auckland one was led by Wayne Brown's attitude to get them out. I'm sure he led that charge. And the Christchurch one, I don't know so much about. But I think I've heard it was by slim majority. I mean, local government New Zealand. My reading of it is it's supposed to be an organisation which is representing the interests of local government to central government. Well, that's sort of that's what they say it is.
Can we get out of it in Taupo District Council?
Yeah. The majority of councillors decide to get out of it, we can get out of it just like that.
What do we have to do make that happen?
Put some pressure on them.
I'm sending them emails every day. You're very good at replying. The mayor will even say something facetious now and again, but the rest of them don't reply.
The mayor never replies to emails, never.
I've had a couple.
Oh, you're lucky.
Who wrote it?
Yeah, who wrote it? His minor or a secretary, one or the other. I mean, why are we paying for him to have two people?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is why. And you were talking before about the councillors not being given all the information by the people who are wanting to propose, the council staff who are proposing things. And this was brought home to me about the bins versus the bags versus bins. In my submission, I stated that we are not an urban area, and according to the government waste management strategy, communities like where we are not considered urban, and that had never been told to any of the councillors. So the person who was pushing it all, the wonderful Greent, he was pushing it all, and he actually hadn't even told you the full facts. And this is where I think there is a real problem with our council, that the staff are not giving the full facts to the councillors for you to make your decisions.
Well, actually, on that note, there was an interesting Court of Appeal case in Wellington just a couple of months ago, where and it seems trivial, but Thornton Quay, a part of Wellington there, and it was just removal of some angled car parking spaces, okay? But someone got concerned enough to pay a bunch of lawyers to take it to the bitter end And the finding there was something like that, well, elected members decided something and they weren't given the full range of practical options to make that decision. So that decision was found to be incorrect.
How can we as ratepayers make sure that councillors are given the pros and cons of every project that's put in front of you, so that you can make an informed decision? Because if you're not even told the facts, you can't be making an informed decision, can you?
Well, first of all, you want to elect people in who can actually tell that they're having the whole picture. That's the starting point.
The mayor has publicly criticised Duncan for asking too many questions. That's his job.
That's why we love Duncan so much.
There was also in that meeting that we had down in Turangi about, the submissions and things like that. And with the waste wheelie bins and things like that they were hoping to put in, we actually found out mid-meeting from somebody, I don't know who, that council had already decided that we weren't going to get those things. But during the meeting, they're still saying, oh, we're going to think on this and we're going to think on it.
I can answer something to that. Is that it's to do with yes, we had received a report making that recommendation the day before, I think.
It was already decided.
Well, no. It wasn't actually decided. It was. This has not been a normal long-term plan. We normally wouldn't have received this report with that recommendation before hearing you submit on it. But the time frame of this, because these long-term plans have been pushed out so long, it seems a bit odd. But
it was over a year in making.
The blame apparently gets put on central government for changing the government and changing the whole Three Waters direction. But to answer that particular point, we had received a recommendation, but on the caveat that, well, hold on, we're getting these submissions, so we thought we listened to that.
And the other thing is, why does the 10-year plan have to be printed on glossy paper with beautiful photographs on every second page, so that people like us who want to print it out can't, we can't afford all the ink for hundreds of pages, when it could be just a black and white statement that we can look at and go through. Why are we paying staff to produce these glossy things that cost so much money?
Yeah, no, good question.
And why are the councillors not saying, listen here, you guys have got to, cut your cloth. And I don't want to be paying for glossy photos. I can't afford to print them out.
Well, we haven't got a Scotsman
Well, no, this is true. I mean, how many staff spend all their time writing 10-year plans?
The new building.
Oh yeah.
So for the figures I'm hearing, is we're currently paying about $550,000 a year for a rental, and we're going to go to 1.27 million.
Sounds roughly about right. Yes.
Was this put before council before anything was signed? Did you know you were going to be doubling our rate?
This decision was the last term elected members.
We all had the decision. I don't remember being asked about it.
But there was that's what apparently you were all asked, would you like to own your own building or lease it?
Yeah.
I don't remember answering that question.
It was cannabis.
One they had.
Well, I don't think.
But we can't go back there because
No, I know.
because Gareth Greent found a little bit of asbestos, and that was his excuse to get rid of it.
Now he's running for the hills.
Yeah, now it's like an office replacement. If you look around New Zealand, there's a lot of council buildings that have been demolished. It's not just Taupo. It's a blanket thing. If you look at other towns, you'll probably find 15 or 20 that would just bolt over. Just like
Earthquake or asbestos.
yeah, something that they found.
Convenient.
Yeah.
Levin, Capital.
How much did a silly pie chart cost that they sent out about our rates?
Yeah, it's not a waste of money.
Yeah.
We're cutting it forward.
Oh, yeah, here's your pie. You cut it here, and you do this.
Yeah.
When we had the COVID lockdown, some sensible people didn't get jabbed up there, they left or were asked to leave or whatever.
Oh, the council, yes.
They cut down on 12 staff in that group?
I asked a question at one point. It was roughly 10 or so
Yeah.
at one point in time
And then
anyway.
since they've gone, they've employed about 35 people to replace them, which would indicate that the first dozen that were put out of a job were far more efficient, would it not?
Well, I've spoken to at least one of them, and he had been there 19 years or so. And he seemed to know his job pretty well. So it's hard to replace people like that.
It is,
You know, yeah.
absolutely. We've lost qualified people that have got good experience, who I believe still haven't been reimbursed. So the new law is they can now go to the council with a good lawyer, since this is happening worldwide, it's already happening in New Zealand, for being displaced, for not upholding the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
So potentially, in the next 12 to 18 months, council is going to get a whole lot of lawsuits over and above the ones we've got names of, that we're going to be people coming back for recompensation for having
that'd be
lost
interesting.
jobs.
We'll
And it's good money.
have to pay for it.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Yeah, don't pay for it.
Just don't pay.
Well, what I've worked out anyway is they get huge big salaries because that way they'll shut their mouths whenever they're told to do anything. Because if you had somebody on 40 grand or 60 grand, what they used to get years ago, they'd always blab if something was wrong, but now they're getting so much money.
Are you talking about council staff? Is it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
they
You'll
just
get
sit there.
wages, salary.
Part of, I think a difference between, say, small town Taupo and a city, also, this is a staffing thing. This is I think this is probably correct. If you work in a city in a certain job and the boss tells you to do stuff that you don't like, well, you can actually just get another job fairly easily. Usually, there's another place not too far. But if you're in a small town like this and you're directed to do stuff that you don't want to do, or you don't agree, but your kids are in school, the local school, and you're settled here and stuff, there's not so many opportunities to talk back to the boss about anything whatsoever, really, and you end up. I don't know the solution to that.
Is it a test of like your morals or ethics or character?
What
you're asking goes against.
All of that.
Your boss should never ask you something that would bring us.
Well, no. For example, you might just think he's blowing a lot of money.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
There should be some kind of that. There should be something.
Accountability.
That's
Accountability.
the
You hire 55
How can they be
staff.
allowed to spend 87 million more than they need to spend in the current plan? That's why I spent hours and hours and hours on this, and I went over and over and over the calculator. They do not need to spend a minimum of 87 million. I was being pretty lenient. I only allowed 35,000 for the waste of the fluoridation. They put in this hydrofluorisillic acid in their water supply that eats concrete. Hope you're all on board with that. And I've asked them to be accountable, and I've asked someone to write back to me. So in the last 4 presentations to council, nobody, I'm not getting at you either, Duncan, because you'd be great to communicate with, no issues there. But nobody's come back to me with how much they're spending on the poison they're putting in the water. I've asked 3 times. When I last spoke at the 10-year plan, I said, where is your credibility when somebody can't come up with a figure? Do you not know what you're spending on it? I doubt that they do. And then they're putting all this blue pipe work in anywhere, everywhere you look, and replacing the sewer down the main road after it was sealed. I mean, they're out of control. It's like somebody in the back room saying, oh, we want to do this and we want to do that. They must be getting a backhander on the blue pipe man. Whoever's making those blue plastic pipes is making $1 million without the bloody clones, which are $2 each a day to hire. So there's a couple of people in the background making lots and lots of money, but it's all coming out of our back pocket and they're expecting to escalate. There's no way I agree with you, it's not just going to hump for 2 years. Once they start implementing these big spend ideas, I can think our rates are just going to go up and up and up and up every year.
Yeah, I mean, central government is certainly to blame for some of this stuff. The new water standards stuff. I mean, I can tell that.
plants and equipment.
On the new water standards, Tony,
Yeah.
they're putting in ultraviolet treatment in the Moy, they're putting in filters to remove the arsenic in the Lake Taupo, and there's arsenic. I mean, no one in the Moy's died of arsenic poisoning as far as I know, but they're going to put in all these expensive treatment plants, and it's a one-off cost. It's 5 million in the Moy, but our rates are going to pay for that. But shouldn't that be it's not a target, it's a special rate. When you put in a plant or a sewer line that served the community, that community paid for it on differential rate, was it called? And then once it was paid for, it disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, we paid for it, it's going to be on forever and a day. It's never going to drop down the costs. What?
The road.
Very good point.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that one, but I mean, just generally speaking, yeah, I've tried to get the question. Well, what benefits are we really getting out of spending all this money? Really, you know, are we stopping? We're getting sick. How many people are going to get less sick? I haven't been able to pin down. I've had no answer to that. I mean, it's hard to challenge this stuff unless you actually know a lot about it yourself. Like these my little examples, I happen to traffic transport stuff. I can pick holes, I can definitely pick holes in that. But as soon as you try diving into other stuff,
Imagine if we had someone like Phil in the office running the waterworks and the engineering. He knows to budget, he knows to contract out the pricing, but that's something else I got up with him about the 10-year plan. They're talking about doing property development and getting involved with land. Because what they're lacking greatly, I think, is income. Why should they have all their income dependent on ratepayers?
Well, people like Phil getting elected in and being able to oversee and start drilling in and bashing in things and just get determined about it, that's kind of what we need.
Contract out every single job, every single development, and they're on about putting aside a big, humongous amount. I can't think of the figure off the top of my head because I'm feeling a bit intimidated with so many people. But they had a figure of mine, and they've already got all this land that they own behind the countdown in that new Whareroka subdivision. They actually own the land in there. So instead of bringing in an independent contractor to build houses, make lots of money out of it, and keep putting the prices of housing up, council should contract out the work, get the best price for each property, do 2 and 3 and 1 bedroom units. They're trying to come up with properties that people can buy. Well, the current interest rates, young people can't afford to buy their homes, and I can't see that changing in the short term. So I suggested that council should be building the homes and have council property owned and rent them out to the people that can't buy them.
No, I don't think there's anyone capable of doing that. I don't think that is the main.
That's not sticking to your core business.
No, that's not a core business.
That's the way the
Excuse me, everyone. Excuse me. One last one because the guy's coming to close. We're 15 minutes over time.
Yeah.
He's coming in.
So Duncan and Tristan, I just want to ask everybody here, is anybody here interested in starting or belonging to a ratepayers association with Taupo?
Well, we have started a group, Total Ratepayers Group, which is we've put on 2 of these.
Right,
Yeah.
so how do we access that? Through you?
We've just got a Facebook, it's only cake.
Yeah, but just
and everyone who comes to the meetings.
so there's a ratepayers association, and then if we want to have an organization like that, we have to jump through many hoops. That's what I was told.
Yeah, but we're kind of an informal group of people.
A watchdog.
But
no,
we don't have the power that the Duncan
we do have
said.
the power because we can start a meeting that people can come.
Yeah.
Here's the power.
Yeah.
Because the common sense is here. We're not in the chamber of bureaucracy that the council's in. We're in the real world where we have to balance our books and live within our means and do things practically and to a standard. And so we
get a logo. Get a logo.
We have got a logo.
Oh, we have.
Yeah.
Our logo is a little house. A little green house.
Yeah.
That's our logo. We have a logo. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you do. Yes. Yes.
For example, I'm I don't pay for the Auckland ratepayers. I get email. It takes money. It takes money. It's not only a time of money.
So a big thank you to everyone for coming out. A thank you to Phil and Duncan for their talks. And I think the next meeting we'll be having is to put some more pressure on getting the fluoride out of our water. Now that the National Toxicology report in the US has come out, showing that lowers IQ is similar to lead. So now's a good time to be getting active and making our voices heard. They are our public servants. They are serving us. So it's up to us. It's not. So, remember him, please. Take away the cheers.